This Lamar Jackson thing is pretty odd and it's pretty unprecedented. Now, it's been unprecedented for years, right? I mentioned this last year. No quarterback the caliber of Lamar Jackson has been at this point, right? Like, we're talking about a guy who's not just a good quarterback. He won the MVP. He proved that he was the best player in the NFL in 2019. Now, you can argue whether he's been at that level the last few years. But how many quarterbacks in the NFL are we really talking about ever even being at that level? But for whatever reason, Lamar Jackson gets treated like an outlier when he was almost a unanimous MVP. It's kind of odd to me. And he's been in this contract kerfuffle with the Baltimore Ravens, and things have gotten interesting as of recently with this whole thing. With him and the Ravens, because they put the non-exclusive tag on him. Now, when the non-exclusive tag was put on him, a lot of people felt like this is going to be kind of a shady situation that's going on here. And what's happened here has been quite weird, where the market is basically operating as if Lamar Jackson is not in it. And it's weird for the free agent market to be acting like the most impactful player in the market is not in it. Like, you can try to justify it. And when it comes to Lamar Jackson, there's no shortage of people who are willing to justify things that don't make sense for a quarterback his caliber, for reasons that are kind of like mundane, but people will try to justify it with Lamar, try to like make it make sense, when no quarterback who's 26 years old, who's a former MVP, is ever being treated like this in the market as if they don't exist, right? We could talk about, oh, teams don't have the money. Oh, teams don't have this. Teams didn't have that. I've seen NFL teams move heaven and earth to get lesser quarterbacks than Lamar Jackson onto their roster. Point blank, period. They've moved heaven and earth. The Jets are moving heaven and earth for an old Aaron Rodgers, who wasn't even that good last year. Don't tell me that, oh, it's the cap, it's this and that, when we have seen NFL teams demonstrate that if they want a player, especially a quarterback, they will move heaven and earth, but yet the market is operating as if he's not even there, which is interesting, right? I'm not saying that teams are saying the price is too high on Lamar Jackson. They're not even asking what the price is. And what's interesting is that there has been this assumption that has just been an assumption that Lamar Jackson is demanding $250 million guaranteed, or demanding $231 million guaranteed because Deshaun Watson got $230. But that has been an assumption. Nothing has been reported as fact. We've been talking about it as if that's the fact, as if we know for a fact that that's what Lamar Jackson wants. We actually don't know if that's what he's been trying to negotiate for himself. All we know is that Lamar Jackson does not have an agent, and that he's been negotiating for himself. And now he's on a non-exclusive tag, which means he is free to negotiate with other teams. So the fact that the teams are operating as if he's not even on the market, right? Not waiting to see if we can hold up some cap space here, not seeing what they could potentially manipulate, right? Like, the fact that teams are operating as if he's just not there, going ahead and signing guys for big money at quarterback like Derek Carr, Jimmy Garoppolo, who didn't get big money but got enough money to where you're not going to go after Lamar Jackson after signing him. It's kind of odd. It's kind of odd. Again, it's not that nobody wants to give Lamar the money. It's that nobody is willing to even negotiate with him. They're acting as if he's not available. And again, people are going to make these excuses about, oh, well, nobody wants to negotiate for the Ravens. Look at the history of transition tags and non-exclusive tags and tell me how often they get matched. And you can say, well, it's not for a quarterback. Okay, yeah. But you can offer a contract to Lamar Jackson that the Ravens clearly aren't willing to match. And honestly, what we found out is you don't even got to do that much. All you got to do is offer more than $133 million fully guaranteed, and the Ravens won't match it because that's as high as they've been willing to go. How do we find that out? Is this a source? No, this is from Lamar Jackson himself, responding to a report from Schefter that says Lamar turned down a $200 million guaranteed deal back in September. He called cap. I love Lamar's Twitter. He literally just called cap on it and said it was 133, 3 years fully guaranteed, but I need an agent. So basically, my interpretation of this, because it is an interpretation, is that the Ravens weren't offering a fully guaranteed. Keep your ears open when you hear this, because teams will throw around, oh, we're offering $200 million in guaranteed. And agents will throw around $200 million in guaranteed, not to be nefarious, but that's been the agreement between both sides. Because if you're an agent and you can try to sell a player on, hey, I got this guy $200 million guaranteed, the player's going to think, oh, that's guaranteed money that you're getting me. But it's not, because the word that's not in there is a key one, and it's the most important one. Fully. You see how that doesn't say $200 million fully guaranteed? Whenever we talk about Deshaun Watson's contract, we say $230 million fully guaranteed. Notice the difference in language. It's not a mistake. That absence is there for a reason, because it's really $133 million fully guaranteed. The rest of that 200 of the 70 or 60 something million dollars that's in there, that's not guaranteed. That's incentive based. So basically, it's like if I was like, hey man, I guarantee you an extra $70 million if you do this and that. If your guarantee is conditional, guess what? It's not. It's not a guarantee. If it's a potential guarantee, it's not a guarantee. There's no potential or possible when it comes to a guarantee. It's a guarantee. They're using tricky language to confuse you and the public, to lie to you. Because again, the key word there that they're not using is fully guaranteed. And I think it's kind of slimy that Schefter's putting that out there as if it's fully guaranteed, talking about it as if it was $200 million in full guarantees, when he know damn well he lying. I think that's kind of slimy, but we've seen slimy stuff from these reporters in times. Like, it is a kind of slime ball move. It's a very much, hey, let me stay good with ownership move, because you know what you're doing there. You're leaving out fully guaranteed because you know it ain't no guaranteed deal. We, as people in the sports media, need to do better at calling BS on this stuff, by the way. We can't just say, well, that's a guaranteed deal. That's not a guaranteed deal. Because if it was a guaranteed deal, you would say fully guaranteed. And we also need to get over this taboo that we have with guaranteed contracts. Like, somehow NFL owners have gaslit us into believing that giving players fully guaranteed contracts are bad for us, the fan. That's BS. A fully guaranteed contract does a lot for the fan. Now, you don't get any of that money, but you know what it does? It makes it so that if Deshaun Watson is not happy with his contract, he cannot act out of town, because the Browns aren't going to trade him because he has a cap hit of 180 and nobody's trading for that. It gives you the leverage that you need to keep Deshaun Watson in town, or whatever franchise player, Lamar Jackson. You know that you have the security of knowing that, the player's not going to be able to just force his way out. That's the one thing, right? Whenever people be crying about, oh, Myles Garrett might want out of town, well, give Myles Garrett more guaranteed money, and you ain't got to worry about if Myles Garrett want to go out of town, because he ain't got no choice. He's going to play here if he has more guaranteed money. So if you're somebody who's worried about that because you're a fan of a small market team, you should want your players to be signed on fully guaranteed contracts, because that greatly reduces the chance that a player is going to be able to force his way out. Because they can't be traded at that point. So that's that. Also, player ain't gonna sit out on no guaranteed money. Okay, a player might sit out when that money ain't guaranteed and all they're really losing is the game checks that aren't really the big part of the contract. But guaranteed money, if you sit out on a contract with guaranteed money, you might have to pay that back. And nobody's trying to do that. Once the money is in the account, you are showing up to work, right? Like, that is the basic of it. So if you don't want a player to hold out, if you don't want to worry about if a player wants to play for your team, if you don't want to worry about all that off the field drama, guarantee your franchise players the contract. because it puts it down. Also, lowers the cap hit because when you sign a guaranteed contract, players are willing to take less overall money, less of an impact to the cap. It's better for the team. It's better for you, the fan. The only person it's not good for is the owner that's got to put all that money in escrow. So they got y'all out here mad about money that they got to put in their bank account that they wasn't spending towards you anyways. These owners gaslight us constantly, and people keep defending them. They keep making us spend money for stadiums that they charge us $200 to get in, or they'll threaten to take the team away. They don't want to keep your favorite players because they're too cheap to want to put money in the bank account when they got it. These people are not your friends that own the team. They are your enemies. But people will still ride for ownership. A lot of owners ain't really trying to win football games. They're just trying to make money off you. You should not just be blindly praising them. They're not trying to win football games. It's not their goal. But that's been this whole situation with Lamar. And again, I pointed out, I think it's weird that like people are just acting like he's not on the market. And again, people are going to make excuses for that, but I don't think any of them are valid because we're talking about a guy who's 26 years old, plays quarterback and won the MVP. You could say, oh, he's had injury history and all that. It's not like he's missed the season. Deshaun missed the season, missed two. One because of injury, one because of other stuff. And then other quarterbacks, Joe Burrow about to get a deal. He's had an ACL injury. Those are more severe than whatever Lamar's had. It ain't the injuries. You can make it sound like it's about it ain't the injuries. It's the money. And his owners not wanting to pay the money, in my opinion. They don't want to put it in escrow, basically. That's all they want to, that's all we're doing here is they don't want to put it in escrow. It don't benefit nobody but themselves. So your team could have a chance at Lamar Jackson, but they might not take a swing at it because they ain't trying to put that money in escrow. And you might talk to yourself into that being a good idea in March, but you know what? When September comes around and Lamar Jackson's playing football, you're going to wish you spent that money. You're going to wish your owner wasn't so cheap. A lot of people talking themselves into bad opinions about this one. A lot of people talking themselves into Lamar Jackson not being good anymore over this. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. 26 years old, former MVP. Team is dramatically better when he plays versus when he doesn't. That sounds like a franchise elite level quarterback to me. Has had great passing stats, great running stats, great overall team stats, win over replacement. He's the guy. And also one thing I would like to point out is if Lamar's biggest issue here was that it was only 3 years fully guaranteed at 133 and he just wanted 5 years fully guaranteed, that's $44 million over 5 years. That's lower overall than Deshaun Watson. So he's taking less money than Deshaun Watson. It's also less of a cap hit than Kyler Murray. He's not even trying to break the bank if he just wants the extra 2 years fully guaranteed. Again, this benefits nobody but Steve Bisciotti's bank account. That's the only thing. He don't want to put it in. But we out here riding for it. I find that hilarious. But this Lamar Jackson thing is a reminder, and it should be a reminder to everybody who's a fan of an NFL team. These owners ain't your friends. Especially now, as we get away from guys who own the league when it wasn't that expensive and into these guys who buy the league as an asset, will buy into the league as an asset. These guys ain't your friends. They aren't your friends, right? There are a few owners that are really trying to win, for better or worse, right? Jimmy Haslam, Jerry Jones, there are guys who are willing to spend. And then there are guys who are trying to just make money. And either way, whether it's Jimmy Haslam spending a bunch of money on a whim, you should not assume that any of these owners are your ally because they're acting in their own interest, not in your interest. They're not thinking about Quincy at home when they out here doing this nonsense. So that's all I wanted to say about this whole thing. I think it's getting a little bit ridiculous. We'll see how it pans out. This is going to go on for a long time. So we're going to have a lot of time to talk about this Lamar situation, but that's my thoughts on that.